The February 4th Clifton Park Town Board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pat, if you call the roll.
Councilman Whalen? Here. Councilman Standard? Here. Councilman Romano?
Here.
Councilman Ballwood? Here. Supervisor Bear?
Here, entertain a motion to approve Town Board meeting minutes of January 7th and January 14th.
So moved.
Second.
By Mr. Romano, second by Ms. Wallowit. Discussion. Good, Pat?
Councilman Whalen? Yes. Councilman Standard? Yes. Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Ballwood?
Yes.
Supervisor Bear?
Yes. Communications and announcements. This coming Saturday, we have our Clifton Park Winterfest. So lots of activities, both outdoor and indoor this year. And for all of that information, we do have brochures here at Town Hall. We also have that information on the website. Now, as of a couple of days ago, it looked as though we'd have plenty of snow for the sleigh riding, plenty of ice for the ice fishing demonstration, and things of that nature. By the time Saturday comes around, I'm not sure. With these warmer temperatures, which is a nice reprieve, but that could affect some of the outdoor attractions that we have. Now, we also have walks and tours of some of our parks, some of our newer natural areas, so you can do that, snow or no snow. The singing competition, Clifton Park Idol, will go off as planned at the mall, as will the soup contest at the Hilton at the mall. So it's not going to affect everything, but oh yes, and the Clifton Park Community Chorus will be singing at 11 o'clock at the mall before the Clifton Park Idol gets underway. So so please join us on Saturday, and again, just you can get that information on the website or the brochures that we have here in Town Hall. Also, I just want to remind everybody we are hiring for seasonal positions. So if you have a youngster that's in need of something to do this summer and they're willing to work, you can have them apply here at Town Hall. Give you an example of some of the positions. We have laborer positions in our Buildings and Grounds Department. We have camp counselors for our half-day camp, as well as our full-day camp. We have 3 pools, so we hire a fair number of lifeguards to man our pools. So we have many seasonal positions that are available. So if you do have a youngster 16 or above that is interested in working for the town this summer, please have them apply. Children of elected officials, by the way, do not work for the town of Clifton Park, so we do get that question from time to time. So if you are a child of an elected official, and a couple of us have kids right in that age group, but children of elected officials do not work for the town seasonally or otherwise. Mine just got a job at Price Chopper, and I know your daughter has a couple of jobs, so there you go. But we think that's a very important thing to point out, and something that we feel strongly about here in the town. It's part of our ethics law that children of elected officials will not be working for the town. All right, we do have a lot of business this evening. Any other communications or announcements? Okay, very good. First up, we do have a presentation for a gentleman. Do you have that resolution? Yeah. Do you have the? Michael Student. Michael Student retired as of January 30th from the New York State Police. He had a long and distinguished career. And we have a resolution in his honor. Pat, if you could read that, please.
This is resolution number 22 of 2019, resolution recognizing Michael Student for 32 years of service to his community. Whereas the town board has been advised that after 32 years of service to the people of the state of New York and the residents of Saratoga County, senior investigator Michael W. Student has announced his retirement. And whereas senior investigator Michael Student has been an integral part of the Clifton Park Youth Court since its inception in 2014, each fall offering his expertise, professional advice, and steadfast support to youth court members and training, teaching students about the role of law enforcement in youth court and in our community. And whereas Michael Student has had a direct and positive impact on the lives of so many during his time with youth court, now therefore be resolved that the town board of the town of Clifton Park hereby congratulates senior investigator Student on his retirement after 32 years of service in the New York State Police, and be further resolved that the town board thanks him for his dedication and service to the Clifton Park Youth Court. We are honored to have him serve as a member of our community.
Very good. I'll move that we adopt the resolution with a second by the entire board with their approval. Okay. Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Miles? Councilman Oliver? Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. I just want to say about Mike, we work very closely with our policing agencies, Saratoga County Sheriff's Department, the New York State Police, and then of course we have our town security force. But the New York State Police play an important role in our community, and it has been very much a distinct pleasure for me and other members of town government to work with senior investigator Student over the years. About 5 years ago, we initiated a youth court program, and that program has been very successful. Hundreds of students have participated in that program, and an important part of that program is the training that they are required to take. The training consists of various experts from different fields, some affiliated with government, some not. But one of the key presentations that is made during those training sessions is the training given by senior investigator Student. He's able to speak to these students, and we have large groups each year, but he's able to speak to these students and connect with them on a personal basis, and also impart very important information. Now, some of these students want to be lawyers someday, perhaps they want to be police officers, maybe district attorney, but or they just enjoy working in something new, a new program like the youth court. Whatever reason they're there, the fact that we are fortunate as a town to have these professionals that invest their own time to be here and to work with these young men and women is phenomenal, and we're very blessed. And certainly Senior Investigator Student was a cornerstone of those. When I look at the roster of very important professionals that work within our state, county, and towns. So I do want to issue him a sincere thank you, not only for all the work that he's done to keep Clifton Park safe over the years, but again, going above and beyond, by investing his time with the students of Shenendehowa. And I know Mrs. Standart, did you want to say something, Mrs. Standart? Mrs. Standart manages the youth court program, and if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you very much, Senior Investigator Student. We really do appreciate the service that you have provided to youth court and the support that you've given our students. As the supervisor said, Senior Investigator Student has been training our kids for the past 5 years. But in addition to those trainings, he's always been there for support if our kids, as they were preparing for their cases, needed a little extra help. if we had a referral that involved the New York State Troopers, and if our attorneys had some questions, Mike was always available and ready to support and help our students navigate the course that they were preparing for our hearings. So you've had a great impact on our program, and I thank you very much for your service. We really do appreciate everything that you've put in and all the expertise and the support that you've given, and thank you for your service to Clifton Park. You well-deserved retirement, and we're very grateful for you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Student, would you come up to the podium, please? Trying to make you work tonight.
I will be very brief. Phil, thank you very much. Amy, it's a privilege. I think I started my career, the office was right over here. I'm ending my career, 30 feet from it. So, March of '87, the state police barracks was in this building, and I just remember, I think where you are now was the building department?
My office?
Yeah, your office?
Yeah, because I think we were upstairs.
Yeah. So, I think we had 10 troopers. That included a sergeant and a couple investigators. So, state police has come a long way here in Clifton Park. Phil, you've been a gracious host for the state police here, and I can only say one thing: thank you very much. It's been a privilege and an honor working with you and for the people of Clifton Park. Thank you.
God bless you, and thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right, why don't you bring your family up and introduce them as well? When it comes to our policing agencies, all of our first responders, they're on call all the time, and they wouldn't be able to do their job if it weren't for their families. And I never want to forget the incredible sacrifice that the families give to support their. So introduce your family.
My wife Susan, my son Zachary, my daughter Aaron. That's us.
Oh, good. So you're happy to have them home?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Good. See, that's a good thing.
No, it's been great, so I don't want to get better.
Well, that's fantastic. So Mike was done the 30th, so he is separated from service, as we used to say in the military. So, Michael, I do want to thank you. I want to thank your entire family for everything that you've done for the town of Clifton Park. You'll still be around.
Absolutely.
And I think Mike will continue to do a lot of great work and continue to invest time in Clifton Park and Saratoga County, and we can certainly continue to benefit from your incredible professionalism, hard work, and just your commitment to doing the best possible job. God bless.
Thank you very much.
All right, how about another round of applause?
I'll be sending this to you. It'll be in a gold fold.
Don't worry.
So again, we thank Mike, and he was nice enough to think ahead and think of the town, as he always has, and said, well, the person that's taking my place, I got to get him over here so they can start doing the trainings and pick up with the youth court in my absence. And so we appreciate him continuing to think about the town and wanting to ensure a smooth transition. So thanks again, Mike, student. Okay, next up, we have a public hearing. Pat, if you would read the legal notice as it appeared in the Gazette.
Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Clifton Park will conduct a public hearing on the 4th day of February 2019 at 7:03 p.m. in the Wood Memorial Meeting Room in the Town Office Building located at 1 Town Hall Plaza, Town of Clifton Park, County, Saratoga, State of New York, to consider the adoption of a local law of 2019, a local law amending chapters 125(8)(c)(3 as follows. The penalty shall not be assessed against land under easement where the owner and the town board express an agreement in writing for the conveyance of a permanent easement or easement over such lands to the town and the acceptance of such easement by the town board. And this was in the Gazette Gazette on January 23rd, and copies were available for review in the town clerk's office.
Very good. Thank you, Pat. So with that, we'll open the public hearing. The reason for having this hearing is we have a very robust conservation easement program. It's a program that temporarily protects larger tracts of land in the town of Clifton Park from development. We have about 2,000 acres within that program currently. When we partner with large landowners in the conservation easement program, they receive a tax benefit, a reduction in their local property taxes for agreeing not to develop their land for a specific term, 15, 20, or 25 years. This is a different program than, say, our open space program, where we've been able to permanently protect 1,700 acres, and that's a permanent protection. Those are properties that are permanently protected. Again, this is a temporary protection measure. We just recently received some good news. We partner with farms, interested farms, that want to protect their property permanently. There are avenues for them to do that. One avenue is to partner with the town. We complete applications for them to acquire grant funding. And we've been able to permanently protect 4 farms. The most recent is Maple Hill Farm, and it's right off 146A and Ashtown Road, right in that intersection. And they were recently awarded a state grant that will ensure that their property remains permanently protected. It was something that was very important to the Schwartz family, and we're very pleased with that result. So, obviously, if the farm is partnering with the town of Clifton Park, and in this case leading to a permanent protection of their property, they should not be punished if they're leaving the conservation easement program, because there is a penalty involved with leaving the conservation easement program. So it's a simple, well, somewhat simple. You still need to go through a process here, but a rather simple change to our code that we're considering tonight, because we do not believe that the Schwartz family or any other farming family should be penalized for leaving the conservation easement program if they are indeed partnering with the town to protect their property permanently. So that is the basis of our hearing. Walter, is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, that's pretty much it. It's basically changing our conservation easement law to let somebody out of it, especially if they're going to go into selling their development rights to the town, where they have a commitment. So, and you're right, there is no reason to enforce the penalty on it.
Right.
This wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, that would be rather foolish. John, any comments?
No additional comments.
Okay, any comments from the board? Okay, with that, we'll open it up for public comment. If you'd like to speak on this matter, please raise your hand. We'll ask that you come forward, state your name and address for the record, and please keep it to 5 minutes or less. Anybody that would like to speak on this matter? No? Okay. All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And like I said, I don't foresee this as being a controversial issue. But it is a beautiful, picturesque piece of property. If you're heading north on 146A and you come to the light at the intersection with Ashdown, if you look to your left diagonally, it's a beautiful piece of property there, and that's you may see some horses out there and some other activity, but that's the property that is now going through the process of becoming permanently protected. So next time you drive by, you'll know what property we're referring to. All right, so we do have another presentation this evening, and that presentation is by the Windsor Companies. They're going to talk about a proposal for the vacant Kmart location. And this particular property has been topic of quite a bit of discussion over the last few years as far as what might become of the property that Kmart vacated, gosh, only 5 years ago?
Yeah, 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. So I think it was early 14 that they were closing shop, or at least announced that they were going, and went a few months later. So it's been some time already, but time flies, right, Joe?
That's for sure.
So Joe Danable is here from EDP. Joe, take it away.
Yeah, excuse me. Good evening. I'm Joe Danable with the Environmental Design Partnership. Here tonight also with Brett Balzer of Balzer & Tuck Architects. Also with me tonight is the crew from Windsor. We have Bob Sr., Bob Jr., and Tim. The project we're looking at tonight again is the Kmart redevelopment. It's a specific, I'll say, trouble area in the town. It's a large, roughly 2-acre facility, 90,000 square feet, that has been vacant for some time right now. In the history of this parcel, around 2011, 2012, the town initiated studies to create a town center within Clifton Park. That zoning has moved forward, and this parcel is now located within the TC5 or neighborhood district of the town. The building itself, again, as I said, has been vacant, and what we're looking to do is essentially remove the 90,000 square feet, construct 2 new residential buildings totaling 100 units. One of the main things I'd like to point out in this is that we are significantly reducing the impervious area on the property by close to 1 acre. What that relates to is not only increasing green space within the town center, but also a significant reduction in the amount of stormwater that would be reaching a combined stormwater system located behind the Kmart Plaza, behind the atrium, off of Maxwell Drive North. Just briefly locate everybody. Essentially, this slide shows the town center of Clifton Park. The red area is the parcel we're looking at. This is the Shoppers World Plaza. A certain portion of that has been allocated for the Kmart lands. That is the parcel that we are looking at today to propose the residential development. Up close look at the existing conditions on the site. As you can see, parking lot vacant, building vacant, and everything within the green belt around the property is essentially asphalt or sidewalk or building itself. Visual looking up, coming up Park, at the intersection of Park Avenue. Again, looking at the vacant parking lot, looking at the building, no facade on the building. Kind of sits there, again, a large empty space that we'd like to revitalize, redevelop with residential development, which is a key component to developing a community's town center, to have the residents there, the walkable community, bringing there, livening up the neighborhood, if you will. The plan itself, here's where the existing Kmart building is. That building comes down, residential building going in this direction here, residential building here, rerouting the road, the access road that comes around in front of those buildings, developing a streetscape along the front of the property at this location. The plan is ultimately to have a future connection, connect over to Plank Road. That's part of the town center road plan, to have cross access through lots. And eventually, someday in the future, maybe having this road connect all the way out to Maxwell Drive. The area will have a drop-off, property will have a drop-off area located in between the two buildings, a large plaza centered to those buildings in which outdoor passive uses will be able to occur, possibly having park benches, some tree grates with street trees in them, possibly some sculpture. Again, a very attractive area where people are going to want to walk through that area and be in close proximity to the retail centers of the town of Clifton Park. Again, keeping this pretty brief on the site plan portions of it, I'm going to turn it over to Brett Balzer, who will now talk about the architectures of the building.
Thank you.
Before you start that, in between the two buildings, there's, yeah, right there. Any particular amenities for that area, or is it going to be an open courtyard?
This area I was just talking about with the park benches, the sculpture.
Right, but there's not going to be a retail establishment in that area, right? Behind it, or right?
No, there's not retail associated with these two buildings per se. However, Shoppers World, as an overall area, has a significant amount of commercial area, restaurants, service-related uses that the people living here walk to and will be able to use.
Yeah, based on past proposals that were discussed, I figured that would be a question a lot of people would have, so I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, how you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
Good.
Brett Balzer with Balzer & Tuck Architecture. Here briefly just to walk you through a little bit of what might be the architectural style that we're considering for the site. So what we are showing you tonight is not the building for that site, but we're actually doing a study with Windsor Development for a project at the intersection of Clifton Country Road and Clifton Park Center. So this building, similar footprint, 240 by 70 feet. So as Joe alluded to before, we have two building footprints, 240 by 70. We're looking to a similar scale, where it's a 4-story building, but we're tucking parking underneath the rear of the building. We'll see what that looks like. But just to give you a feel for the flavor of the building, some of the style that we're talking about, and the idea that residential would be at that first floor level to help sort of animate that streetscape, not proposing to just put a parking garage there and have that be dead space, but rather front doors, stoops, gardens, and that sort of thing along the streetscape. Another view of that same building, again, we'll see 3 views of this building at the corner of Clifton Park Center, just to give you a feel for what we're talking about. But looking at different materials, perhaps some brick to tie into the existing Shoppers World Plaza, along with maybe some fiber, cement, and glass materials. Really making an effort when we're talking about 4-story buildings in what really is roughly a 2-story plaza. It is a 1-story building, but by height it's closer to 2. The idea of going up 4 stories to step that 4th floor back and have it read more as a 3-story volume. As we go back here, stepping this 4th floor back, sorry, I have to use my pointer. Stepping that 4th floor back and having that 3rd floor read as sort of the front of the building. And as we go around the back of the building, we're talking about the structured parking underneath the building. So each building that we're proposing, there are 2, 50 units per building. We have 22 covered spaces underneath the building, and then we provide the rest as surface spaces. So roughly we're looking at 2 parking space per unit count, which is really what we're finding to be the average, comfortable average for apartments here in the Capital District. And then sectionally, we see what that 4-story building looks like, stepping the 4th floor back again, but really it's slipping the parking underneath the building to give some residents the ability to have covered parking and take some of that burden off, what would be the paved areas, as Joe mentioned, trying to bring up the greenscape and tuck the parking underneath the building. Last slide here. Is this you, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, that's, yeah, you can see it, you can see that middle area a lot better now, yeah.
So that was really it. I could go into a bit more on the architecture if that's of interest.
Yeah, now the spots, when you pull the car in,
Yeah.
there's no door that comes down behind you, right? It's open, or?
So it would, correct. Right now, in this particular project, it would be an open-air parking structure.
Oh,
And then there would be a corridor, a tenant corridor in front of you that would connect to lobbies or main lobby, elevator lobby that would bring you up the full 4 floors.
mm,
There'd be stairs at either end of the building for circulation and also for code. Give you a better feel for it here.
Is there a, it looks like there is there a outdoor feature on the roof?
Yeah,
In other words, is there a social area on the roof?
there would be amenity space is what we refer to it as, but really for recreation, tenant gatherings, we're finding that to be a popular
Right.
thing. But trying to dedicate what would be a private balcony for each unit. That's usually a target or a goal for buildings that we're studying, but also some shared amenity space. Up here we see what might be a shared conference room. Folks who do work from home, actually they work out of their home and need that shared conference space. So locating that with what might be some rooftop terrace. Again, this particular project, how that translates over to the Kmart development, I would think similarly, but we haven't really dove into it. The reason being is we're early in the process, trying to understand how this all sits with you folks tonight, but we know there's work to be done, and look forward to doing it.
Yeah, I would think that would be something that would be attractive to tenants.
Yeah,
Okay. As well as the parking.
for sure.
Any questions on the architectural side of things, Mr. Whalen?
So with the covered parking, is that a additional charge per unit, so that those spaces will be dedicated to a particular unit, or is it more first come, first served?
It would typically be dedicated to a particular unit, whether they roll that into the base rent or it's an additional charge per month. But seeing as there's not enough to at 50 units and there's only 22 that we're proposing for this project, you would essentially be assigned a spot rather than first come, first served. That would get ugly quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the parking, it looks like the intent is to have people park behind buildings, and that.
Correct.
But the large asphalt parking lot is going to be left untouched, correct?
Correct. We are going, the existing road comes out through where that building is. We are pushing that forward,
Right.
having the road out here. This building would remain for overflow parking for the retail center here.
So how far toward, say, 146 will that front building be in relation to where the Kmart sits today? Is it going to be
About 100 feet.
about 100 feet? Okay.
Yeah, so it's tough to see from where you're sitting, but
Yeah.
the edge of the Kmart building is right here.
Okay. Oh, all right.
The depth of our building that we're proposing is 70 feet, and there's roughly a 30-foot distance between what might be the Kmart as it now exists in our
Mhm.
building, so call it 100 feet,
Okay. So it'll be 100 feet closer. Okay.
plus sidewalk to the face of the building, 100 feet, and then sidewalk will come out further, and then that
And then the road.
will be reshaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Sorry. The height of the building as compared to the height of Kmart, the former Kmart that's there now, how does that compare height-wise?
So I can tell you the height of what we're proposing for this building was just under 50 feet. You're about 48 to 49 feet, and that's a result of the desire for 9-foot ceilings and what is a 2-foot plus floor structure in between. So you top out right around 48 or 49 feet. The height of the plaza over at Kmart, what would exist, varies, and we didn't pull dimension on that yet. I don't know if there's any guesses from the Windsor Group on how high that might be. I'm going to say it's in the 20s somewhere, 20 to 25 where it tops out at the parapet. Again, that varies depending on where you're at in the building.
Ms. Smallwood?
Yeah, is your company going to be involved in the removal of the existing structure?
Our architectural company, no. There would be a general contractor, a construction manager that would be involved in the demolition and removal of that structure.
Okay, so my questions will go to that person, so when we find them.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
All right, very good. Do you have any idea as far as on the marketing side of things, is there a range of rents that you'll, is any of that information available yet?
Yeah.
Bob will speak to that.
Yeah, so we currently have, what we're seeing here as far as the market rent side is pretty similar to what we're doing over in front of Hannaford.
Oh, okay.
That's where we see that coming in at. And so those rents are starting at $13.50 a month for a one-bedroom, $15.50 for a one-bedroom study, and $18.50 for a two-bedroom. That's what we have. We have those 3 units over there.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to look at those recently inside. The flooring is very nice, whether it be the harder flooring or the carpet. It seemed like top of the line flooring, very nice, and the amenities in the kitchen were great. Something you don't normally see in apartments, at least not in an area like Clifton Park, as far as the granite countertops and the top-end appliances and the color schemes. It was much different. And then obviously you've got the, as you mentioned, the scape on each unit. So would you pretty much have that same theme with these over by the Kmart if you were to build those, where you have that same high-end amenities that I just mentioned?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's going to be very similar.
Okay.
Actually, Brett's firm did all the interior design on those units.
Well, you did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just think it all went together very well, and the apartments are definitely different than what you normally have seen historically here in the town of the Park, Half Moon, in this area. I've never been in, say, Ellsworth Commons or any of those. I don't know what they have as far as amenities in the kitchen and otherwise, but these were very nice inside.
Well, thank you. I'd offer, to any other board member that wants to go in there, get you up there if you want to see what they look like. So just contact us and let us know.
Yeah, very good. All right, so we've got an idea of the rents and certainly the parking and the size and scope of the building, or two buildings that you're proposing. So be 100 apartment units. There would not be any retail business involved in the project. How is that plaza, the remainder of the plaza? I mean, I know you've had some tenants in, some tenants out, right? How's it doing overall? Is it holding its own?
Overall, it's doing well.
Yeah.
I think a project like this is something that is only going to help that. It's going to also help what we can do out front. I know there was a question about the remaining area out here. And I know that the vision of the town center plan is to create the streetscape out there, and so there's some potential to do something out here at some point in the future. And anytime we've tried to market that, the question is always, hey, what's going on with that back there? The big dead box.
Yeah, so that dead box, for 5 years now, and I'm sure you receive a fair share of suggestions.
Yes.
I know I do.
Yes.
I know I
We
do.
do. And rumors as well.
Well, a lot of them, yeah. Everything but a Chick-fil-A for that location.
Right.
Chick-fil-A's going everywhere else.
Right.
But the one I hear most often is, well, why don't they put a ShopRite in there? Or another grocery store? And I explain to them that due to covenants in the leases with a Price Chopper, with a Hannaford, it's certainly normal that if they're the anchor tenant, which of course they are in this case, that the leases would prohibit that from occurring. You couldn't have another retailer that sells predominantly food to locate in that same plaza.
That is correct.
Is that the right answer?
That's absolutely the right answer. And just to piggyback on that for a second, these big boxes, they do have long-term leases. The Kmart lease was done in '89, a 25-year lease that was up in 2014. They still had an additional 50 years of options, taking that lease, tying up that real estate until 2064, which the real estate they tied up, it's a 13-acre parcel. They had, Kmart had that entire parcel tied up until 2064. So we did buy back that 50 years of that leasehold, just to gain control, to be able to do things. But yes, these long-term leases have restrictions, absolutely. Big box ones.
So the fact that they decided to close was basically the timing with their lease being up was a deciding factor, that they had to decide, do we commit for the next long-term portion of this lease or not, right?
Right. And we had ongoing dialogue with them. We were concerned about them tying up the real estate, so we purchased the leasehold back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what are you seeing in the retail sector overall? We talk about back in the 90s when Exit 9 had a lot of empty retail space. We had a Builders Square building that I think was owned, but wasn't Builders Square owned by Kmart?
Yes.
I think they were. They were the Home Depot before Home Depot, but they had a huge building where Target is. And that had been empty for 5 years. Grand Union was going out of business. The mall was half empty and in bad shape. And we were able to initiate a community effort to attract retailers. And it started with, our first win was Boscov's, and then Target came in and took down the old Builders Square building and built their Target, and then Kohl's. Kohl's likes to be near Target, so they came in and took the Grand Union location. But, fast forward now, all these years later, that was 2000 when we started that effort. I think by 2001 we had already secured Boscov's and Target. Now in the year 2019, the reality of replicating a similar effort just doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, the state of retail has definitely changed. There
Yeah.
has been disruption from multiple things, the biggest being the internet. Kmart's gone. Toys R Us just went back. We've got a 45,000 square foot vacant box across the street. So I think when you look at the state of retail, both generally, like we're talking about, and specifically in the town of Clifton Park, we've got a lot of boxes in the town of Clifton Park. I think when you look at the housing options that the town has to offer, and I think when you look at the vision of the town center plan, I think that this project is the right project at the right time in the right location. That's what's going on.
Yeah, and that the reality of the changing marketplace with commercial real estate and certainly big box stores is something that has concerned us for some time. As a society, through our behavior and habits, we've made a decision that we're going to spend a lot of our money shopping online and not at local brick and mortar retailers. I wish that weren't the case, but as a society, we've made that decision through our behavior. So when we saw that that trend was only increasing, not decreasing, as we went through the 2000s, we knew that it would be important to diversify the economy and not be so reliant upon retail in the future. Certainly that's been a recipe for success for the mall property. The mall property has become tremendously successful. But it looks differently than the regional mall that you would have pictured either in Clifton Park or a lot of areas in the Northeast. You know, there's hotels on the property. There's a 25,000 square foot gym. There's a trampoline park that's being constructed now. So you can still have a successful mall property, but it will have less retail and more entertainment destination options. And I think that's a microcosm for the entirety of what's happening not only in Clifton Park but across the country. So, like I said, to the thought of replicating what we were able to achieve back then in the early 2000s, I just don't believe is reality. So, but our diversification efforts have been very successful. 120 million in new healthcare investments. People can get top-rate cancer care right here in town. Specialist general practitioners, 24/7 health services available right here in town. The hospitality sector, again, very important part of that diversification effort. And through the town center plan process, where we began to consider new ideas, we realized that we had to be open to new forms of investment. We worked so hard to fill these empty retail places, whether it be retail space in a mall or freestanding store that was empty, and to have more big boxes go out of business, and creating empty retail spaces again here in the town is something that we just can't have for the long term. It's not good for your economy, it's terrible for your tax base, and overall makes the, in this case, the Exit 9 area less attractive to other investors. I guess my point is the options available to municipalities like Clifton Park as we consider the next evolution of our commercial center are very, very limited. And that's just reality of today. I had somebody mention to me today that, I can't remember what city it was, but in the city that was having a hard time, they were able to take an empty big box store and they created 10 restaurants, just a big area for restaurants. And I said, well, you know, based on what I've seen with the restaurant industry in town and the capital region, I don't think that's a good option either. The casual dining market is struggling. Ruby Tuesdays, I mean, you talk about a terrific location and a company that's been in business for a long time. I mean, facing Route 146 on a corner here in the middle of Exit 9 in Clifton Park, and they went out of business. A smaller restaurant around the corner, Shane's, went out of business. We've had other restaurant areas that people have struggled to make it. And with the policies that are coming out of Albany, running a restaurant in particular is not getting any easier. You see the large increases in the minimum wage each year, and other regulations that are being passed in Albany. It's incredibly difficult to have a profitable, successful restaurant in New York State, at least. Right now. So I'm afraid that there might be more restaurants that are teetering with the new increase in the minimum wage to $11.10 per hour. And like I said, other regulations. So I don't think, transforming a building like that into a series of restaurants is realistic either at this point. I mean, the other thing is, of course, you got to find 10 business owners that are willing to invest in that venture, along with yourself. So our options are limited. We need to be open to new ideas, new types of investment. That's what the town center plan was all about. We adopted that plan in 2012, and we've begun to see the next evolution of Exit 9 take place. And I know it happens quickly. I mean, when I was first coming out of college, my jobs, and you get in these corporate rooms, and we used to have consultants come in and talk about 15, 20, 25-year business cycles. Now those business cycles are 5, 10 years, some industries 6 months, some even shorter. So, yeah, does it seem quick that we were aggressively courting Boscov's, Target, and Kohl's, and others in the early 2000s, and less than a decade later, we're already planning for the next evolution of our commercial center and diversifying our economy? Yeah, that's a very, very quick turnaround. But if you don't have a plan, you will get left behind. And I think it's important that this town board has had the foresight to take that year and a half to study all of these options, to have the public meetings where we received a tremendous amount of input from the residents of Clifton Park that were used to formulate that plan and the subsequent zoning changes. It was a very important process and set the stage for where we might be in the future. We can sit back and be victims of circumstances beyond our control, or we can plan for the future and manage success. And that's the position that I always want this town to be in, planning properly for the future and managing success. Others are not going to plan, and they'll be managing failure, and I just think that's obviously the wrong route to take. So, with that, I just thought it was important to talk a little bit about the current state of retail. I hear rumors, you talk about hearing rumors, rumors and negativity about other retail sectors that are very prominent in the Exit 9 area. Unfortunately, we probably haven't seen the last of business closings, and this is an area that's successful. This is an area here in Clifton Park in Saratoga County that is a low-cost place to conduct business and live. So if businesses are having difficulties and challenges here in Clifton Park in Saratoga County, you can imagine what's taking place in many parts of New York. You don't have to imagine, you can go there and see, as I have, and I'm sure many of you have. But yeah, so it's very concerning, and that's why we continuously plan for the future and try to strike that balance between development and protection of our open spaces and growing our parks and recreational network. But we're going to continue to drive value to the Exit 9 area. We've got a large grant that we were able to secure for several crosswalks, which will be ADA compliant with flashing pedestrian activated beacons. That will make this area and Exit 9 more pedestrian friendly, which we believe is an important amenity to add for the future. We want to do everything we can to create the right environment for businesses and residents to thrive at Exit 9 and throughout the town of Clifton Park. But Exit 9 is an economic driver for the town and Saratoga County and the capital region, and it's a very, very important area to the future of our tax base and our tax situation. We don't have a town tax. Our highway tax is much lower than it was 20 years ago. Not too many municipalities that can say that. So, anyway, are there any other comments? Ms. Holloway?
I'd like to move across the street and compliment you on the landscaping that's been done on the entryway. from Clifton Park Center Road into the Hanford area, the fencing, the trees. The thing that we used to call the goose pond is no longer referred to as the goose pond. It actually has landscaping around it and looks much like not an eyesore that it used to be. It looks
Thank you.
very nice.
Thank you.
And it's added a great deal to the area.
Thank you.
One other question I want to ask before I forget is, and we had this similar question up the street here at 146, 146A with a property that originally the owner wanted to build apartments, both the previous owner and the current owner, and we did not approve either request. And when they came in with a plan for commercial shopping plaza, which is what it's zoned for, many people in that area of town said, geez, no, we really don't want that, and if anything, we think residential would be a better option. So the applicant took that from the meetings and came back with a residential plan that had many fine attributes. But the question then too was, which use is more intense, right? So in that case it was zoned commercial, and the final result was a residential option. In this case, which would be less intense, in this case, if you say you were able to attract a big box retailer, or Kmart was still in business, is that commercial use more or less intense than what you're proposing here, and why?
Speaking to
Maybe
that,
come up here to the microphone, Joe.
speaking to that question from say a traffic standpoint, the trips generated by this this residential venture on the property are currently AM peak hours of 34, PM peak hours of 44 trips, and a weekend Saturday peak hour of about 49 trips for the 100 residential units. In comparison to the 90,000 square foot retailer, which would be in the range of 100 trips in the AM peak hour, 400 in the PM peak hour, and 600 in the Saturday peak hour. So if we just look at the Saturday peak hour, we're reducing trips by close to 550, and then in the regular PM peak hours, we're reducing the trips in close to 380 trips in that hour by going from the commercial use to this residential use.
Is the question of their ability to walk to several stores and other destination points from that particular proposed building, is that factored in, or would that just be a benefit on top of what you're stating there?
I believe that would be an ancillary benefit to these numbers. These numbers are strictly for market uses.
Yeah, as I just think about, what, so that's the general apartment guidelines then.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because I just think about, what you could walk to easily, and I guess, you've got you got Price Chopper, you got a couple of restaurants, you got a restaurant across the parking lot, across Park Ave there, you got dry cleaner, pizza place.
There's a lot of services where,
Yeah.
that's part of the project, the proposal is pedestrian connectivity, and as this area out front gets developed, there'll be pedestrian connectivity to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so it would seem that there's a fair number of destination
Yeah.
points that you could, banking, there's a few, well, at least a couple of different banks, right? Yeah. Okay.
As the town center code alludes to, walking distances of a half a mile from where you park to
Mhm.
where you work are acceptable. And in this instance, from this facility, there's large office buildings located in Executive Woods. There's the rehab, St. Peter's Health Partner buildings. And you also have all the medical redevelopment that's occurring down off Cinerly Road. So again, some of the better jobs in the area are within walking distance of the apartments that are being proposed here and in other parts of the town center.
Right, right. Yeah, and there's a new sidewalk over by the Capital Bank on the McDonald's side of things, and you can get to the CVS fairly easily as well, yeah. All right. Very good. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Whalen?
Joe, just to clarify on the traffic count, which I don't disagree with, it makes sense to me, but I think you're talking correct about with an active store there as opposed to now, correct? Because I presume right now there's no trips.
Right.
You're talking about when Kmart or if a similar store was in business, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
when the question was asked,
Yeah, I just wanted to-
if they
yeah.
were a new retailer.
Okay, obviously now you probably assume 0 trips. We would
Pretty
say. Just a couple of questions, and if you answer these before, I apologize for not writing them down. The square footage of the building now as compared to the square footage of the 2 apartment buildings that would be put up, I believe you said there was a reduction in the footprint, correct? In the total footprint as compared to the Kmart now?
Correct, in the footprint, the Kmart itself is around 90,000
Yep.
square feet. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe each residential building has about an 18,000 square foot footprint.
Footprint.
Okay, so it's almost a 2/3.
Yeah, that is the footprint, so you're actually stacking that square footage up. So each residential building would be 65,000 square feet. But stacked on a 17,000 square foot footprint.
Got it. Okay, yeah. In terms of just footprint itself, not square footage.
Yeah,
Okay.
total footprint for the 2 buildings would be 34,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of green space, is there going to be I have to go through the planning process, obviously, but is there an anticipated increase in green space that you could point to now, at least as an estimate?
Yeah, we had talked about with the removal of the building, essentially everything within the area identified in this map is currently, if I colored this pavement, would be all gray. So everything that you're seeing on this map that is in green is all new pervious area and green space, which is adding close to an acre of green space to the area of development.
Yeah, essentially go from 0, essentially, from what the parcel is now to
Correct.
1 acre. Okay. And just final question, have you received any feedback at all from anyone who lives in the general area? And if you have, how would you characterize it? Positive, negative, ambivalent?
Any feedback from anyone that lives in the general area?
Yeah, I mean, has anybody who lived in the area
Specific.
reached out to you guys to say, hey, this is a great project, this is a terrible project?
We have had
What'd you do?
a couple
Whatever.
people call on the existing project that we have in front of Hannaford,
Yep.
and they were interested in this project. So we have had that, but we have not received anything that I'm aware of from anybody, just in general, about this.
Just curious. Thanks.
Yeah, and you talk about increasing green space, and certainly the town did increase the green space exponentially in the Exit 9 area. This is a rather small parcel of consideration, talking about green space in comparison to the 37 acres that the town purchased from the school district. That was the site of the proposed ShopRite. I don't mean to give ShopRite a bad name tonight. I keep mentioning ShopRite. That was the area for the proposed ShopRite that is now owned by the town. So we did exponentially increase the green space in the Exit 9 area, and we'll soon have, right, John, have our consultant on board to begin that lengthy, comprehensive public planning process for that 37 acres. So we're very much looking forward to that process. But back to this. Any other questions from the board at this time? Okay. Anything else that you wanted to mention? What about the demographic? As far as what you've seen with the other building, the other new building that we described, and what you expect to be your demographic for tenants in this building.
Yeah, we expect it to be pretty similar, and really what we're seeing there, the 2 cohorts are the empty nesters at one end of the spectrum. Those that have raised their families in the town of Clifton Park and want to remain in the town of Clifton Park, but don't want the 2,400 square foot home and the 3/4 acre lot and the maintenance that goes along with that. So that's one end, and the other would be more.
I'm getting there.
More of the young professional. And we have both those cohorts over at Residence 15 in front of Hannaford.
All right, good. All right, very good. Well, we thank you for giving us this presentation. We've got a lot to to consider and take in, but definitely wanted to get it not only presented to the town board, but any interested folks that live in the town of Clifton Park as well. So thanks.
Thank you.
We will likely have some follow-up questions for you, which we'll get to you, and we'll continue to be in touch.
Good. Look forward to working with them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Now, Joe, you had another discussion point, right?
Correct. We also have the Peregrine Senior Living that's up for
Yeah.
resolution tonight.
Right. Do you have any slides on that?
I do.
All right, well, we might as well do that now.
Shift gears here.
Take care. Okay, now this is right on 146, correct? Did you drop something?
I lost my pen. I found another one up here. Bob must have taken it
Yeah,
as he was
right.
walking out. Okay, getting Joe Danimal with Environmental Design. I'm here tonight with Stephen Bowman and Melissa Dobbins of Peregrine Senior Living. Project itself, as you said, is located on 146. Here on the map, 146 Moe Road, directly across from my office. I got a great view of it every day, so I do have an interest in what is going on here as well. Again, looking at the zoning, it is currently zoned a planned development district, the Verbeck-Frank Land Development District, established roughly 25-30 years ago. At that time when it was established, this senior center was a key component in the development, and what we are finding today is that it has been successful and that they do need to expand and accommodate more bedrooms within the facility. However, the existing PDD had some, I don't want to say restrictions, but maybe not any foresight to see what was going to happen in the future and the additional need for beds at this facility, so we'd like to clear up and get an amendment to that to allow for this expansion. Existing conditions, the building itself, accessed off 146 on Emma Lane, circular drop-off, main entrance to the building. These are the residential wings of the building, and some parking in the rear of the facility. So what we are looking to do is come off the front of the building on the 146 side with a roughly 8,000 square foot addition to that building. One that brings into conflict with the current code two items. One, the overall building square footage was allowed to be up to 30,000 square feet. We're proposing to increase that to allow us to go up to 40,000 square feet. Second part of the building expansion, which is in conflict with the code, is there was a 155-foot front yard setback established from the center line of Route 146 with this PDD.
150?
155.
Oh.
Currently, there's special setbacks provisions within the code for streets within Clifton Parks, one of them being Route 146, and that is to go to 130 feet from the center line. We would be proposing for this portion of the PDD to change the 155-foot setback to 130-foot setback, which is consistent with all the development along 146. The third provision is we do need, with some of the additional beds, there's going to be new jobs and additional staff at the facility. The PDD also alluded to of around 30 parking spaces. We'd like to add 10 to 11 additional spaces and bringing that number up to 40 parking spaces. So those are the three changes to amendments to the PDD that we are looking for. If you have any additional questions, I can certainly answer them related to the site, and I also, again, have Stephen and Melissa here that can answer anything about the operations of the facility. Thanks.
Yeah, I've been to the facility on several occasions, and it does does offer unique and important services to many people. Maybe you can talk a little bit about those services for folks that aren't aware.
My name is Stephen Bowman. I'm with Peregrine. And the primary need that is served and addressed at this community is care for people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. We have been operational in this community for about 15 years. We've enjoyed a tremendous success and a very high census. So we recognize that our mission is not yet complete by any stretch of the imagination. There's a greater need for people in need of this type of services with memory care challenges, and we want to increase the number of units so we can serve more people and hopefully even bring some of the costs down for our community. So I would love it if you came by to visit us. We have a very exciting, unique program we call the Peregrine Way, which tends to operate about 180 degrees differently than the industry, with the way we treat memory, the way we treat families, and the way we treat activities. So it's a unique program, it's a dynamic program, and we're here tonight because we want to expand our mission. Thank you.
Steve, you know, I just talked about diversifying the economy, something we initiated about a decade ago, and a big part of that has been the $120 million in new healthcare investments, and certainly this would be considered healthcare. What have you seen as far as vacancy rates? You know, obviously you can only serve a certain number of people based on the space you have available. So what have you seen over the last, say, 5 to 10 years as far as number of spots available versus how many people you're serving? And what is your, I suspect you envision more growth in the future. Is that from studies you've done, or because you have people on a waiting list or something of that nature?
Well, there's a couple of variables that are affecting this kind of conversation. Number one, we know the baby boomers are retiring in huge numbers now, so that's going to drive up the need for this type of service. Number two, because of the life expectancy of people, that by the year 2050, 50% of people over 65 will have Alzheimer's, which is a staggering number. That's up from probably 10 or 15% today, and that's because of the life expectancy. The big crisis in long-term care is affordability. 20% of people have the private resource to access a memory care community that can afford it. 20% of the individuals can access the system through Medicaid because they're indigent. But the big crisis coming in the next 20 years is how to handle caring for those middle-income seniors who are not Medicaid dependent or accessing Medicaid, and those who can't afford it now privately. So 60% of the seniors in the middle are the ones who really are going to face challenges in the future. It's a crisis, and it's interesting to me that when all we talk about health care and Obamacare, you never hear people talking about long-term care, Democrats or Republicans. It's a secret bomb, it's a secret crisis waiting upon us that no one really wants to talk about. So, yes, their need is growing. Yes, we will be expanding, if not at this town, but other areas in the Capital District. The need is great, and it needs to be addressed.
And what other locations do you have within, you know, maybe a half hour, an hour?
Well, right now we're currently operating in Colony. We're probably going to be building another building there. We are out looking for sites in the Delmar area today, so we think there's a great need in the Capital District. We also operate buildings in Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo areas.
Okay. Any questions at this time for Joe or Steve? Okay. Joe, if you could go. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. If I missed it before, I'm sorry. How many beds are going to be, do you anticipate?
We're going to be adding, I think, 16 beds, but it's only going to be a net 13 because we're going to take some of the units offline to accommodate communal activities.
Does this addition require any sort of Department of Health or other regulatory
Yes.
approval? Okay.
Those beds will have to be licensed by the New York State Department of Health and monitored by them.
So even after this process, assuming it was granted, you still need to go through that?
Yes.
Is that the certificate of need process?
Yes. That's what they call it.
I remember going through that with Ellis when they first established here in Clifton Park. Joe, if you could go back to one of your initial slides, yeah, right there. If you could, that might be the best slide to kind of point out maybe the limit of where that expansion will end up as you come closer to 146 there.
Let me just make sure I give you the right spot. The expansion will come down to about this location here.
Okay. So it's not going east at all?
Slightly east, north is directly up this building.
When you say slightly east?
Yeah, so what we have established on this property, this is the residential community here.
Right.
We have a 100-foot setback from that residential community that will remain wooded with this expansion. What we are doing is taking this wall here that runs parallel with that property line and expanding it towards Route 146, which is, for all intensive purposes, directly south. But the building is skewed a little bit off of the north-south axis. So again, we'll be expanding the building down here. There's an existing trail that goes around the building that will be interrupted. We are going to re-extend that trail around the front of the building, connecting into the sidewalk system. So that will be in operation after the expansion of the facility. And again, we are going to adhere to the existing restrictions on this buffer and maintain.
So you're not asking for any alleviation of what the current legislation says regarding the buffer?
No.
Okay. And John, can you make sure that we have a copy of that buffer?
Yes.
And a full explanation of it
Sure.
before we, go to any further steps, okay?
Yep.
Yes, go ahead.
On the 130-foot setback, did you say that all of 146 along that stretch has a 130-foot setback by?
Yeah, town code has a
Town code.
special setback provision for certain roads within the town, one of them being Route
Right, so you
146.
could accomplish the same goal just by eliminating the separate setback in this legislation and not replacing it with anything.
I would say that would be accurate. Other than we are impacting within the PDD, we're only this portion of it. That PDD expands to the rest of it. So we're taking that out of the legislation would have an impact for over there as well.
Okay, thanks.
One of the last things I want to point out, I skipped on the slide. This is the new photorealistic elevations of the building. As we went through the planning board, one of their strongest comments and recommendations to this board was related to the architecture of the building and making sure that it matched the existing finishes and trims and let everybody believes the current facility is an attractive, has an attractive appearance as you're driving east on Route 146. So what we did is developed a photorealistic interpretation of what the building expansion will look like after completion, looking from the west towards the east and northeast of the building. Again, the new facade of the building, this is the expansion area here, that's the existing entrance to the building at that location. So we are matching materials, the same stone treatments, gables, and other siding.
And what was the planning board's recommendation, John, and anything that we need to be cognizant of as far as their comments are concerned?
Sure. The planning board issued a written recommendation, basically recommending approval of the PDD. They did recommend pursuant to seeker that it be classified as a type 2 unlisted action, and the town board could do its own seeker determination based on the PDD amendment, and then the planning board for site plan approval would do its own independent seeker interpretation. Joe hit upon, I'd say, the most important comment, which was to ensure that the architectural material type and features are similar to the existing building. We also talked about preserving the buffer, which the applicant was cognizant of from the adjacent residents. And we also discussed in terms of, just as a comment, as when it comes back for site plan approval, to determine if there was a need for potential upsizing of any backup power supply, and if so, putting sound attenuation devices on any backup power generators if the plans call for such improvements.
Okay. Any other questions from the board, comments? Yes, Mr. Whalen?
Joe, is there, excuse me, is there property for a future development if there was a need for additional beds 5-10 years in the future? Is there sufficient acreage on the site to accomplish that, or is this going to be physically, unless there was an acquisition of land, the last addition?
I don't believe there's enough room for future expansion of this building. Would probably be a new facility.
Okay. Be like a two-story or a multi-story or something.
Tearing down this building,
Gotcha.
going multi-story is an option. However, I don't know that.
No. My question more was, is there additional land in the future? Or is this sort of it? So.
Yeah, the PDD itself in that area is essentially built out. As you look to the west, there is the series of smaller medical buildings, doctors' offices. That's all built.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well, there's one thing that always rings true with healthcare facilities, whether it's a Ellis Medicine in town or a NYOH or the St. Peter's campus or your facility here, the Peregrine facility. It's that couple of things. Throughout the history of the town, there was very little in the way of health care available here in the town of Clifton Park. And how many years I heard people say that, geez, just to go to a doctor or a specialist or have a procedure, whatever it might be, I've got to go to Troy, Schenectady, Albany, Westchester for cancer care. And having those services close to home is very important to people. And similarly, with situations like this, and the St. Peter's Nursing Home at Exit 9, people enjoy the fact that their loved one is close to them, that their loved one is close to home. Coburg Village is another example. And that too can be very important to a family. We're all busy, and when people can visit their loved one and have their loved one attain first-rate services close to home, that's a real quality of life issue. So, all right. Any last call? Questions? Comments? Okay. Very good. Anything else, John?
Nope.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll, as I told you for the other project, I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions, and appreciate you being here tonight.
And we look forward to coming back for the public hearing.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Pat, I think we're ready for resolutions. How about that?
I'm ready.
We're ready if you're ready.
Resolution accepting an application for inclusion in the conservation easement program of 2 parcels of land located at 929 and 937 Grooms Road, Rexford. Whereas a public hearing was held on September 4th, 2018 to allow the town board to receive public comment regarding an application for a conservation easement for inclusion of 2 parcels of land at 929 and 937 Grooms Road into the conservation easement 25-year term program in accordance with Chapter 125 of the Town Code as amended. And whereas the town board members approved the application at the September 4th, 2018 town board meeting by voice vote, now therefore be it resolved that the assessor is hereby notified to include the parcels located at 929 and 937 Grooms Road, Rexford, owned by Doug Kowicki, in a 25-year conservation easement in accordance with the attached application pursuant to Chapter 125 of the Town Code. A resolution authorizing alcoholic beverages to be served at a gathering to be held at the Clifton Park Senior Community Center on May 5th, 2019. Whereas Tammy Frund is hosting the Kaufman Bar Mitzvah on May 5th, 2019, and a request has been received for permission to serve alcohol in the form of beer and wine at the event. Now therefore be it resolved that Tammy from Kaufman Bar Mitzvah is hereby authorized to serve beer and/or wine at a gathering at the Clifton Park Senior Community Center on May 5th, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., consistent with the terms of the permit application received in the office of the Clifton Park Senior Community Center. A resolution setting a public hearing to consider an amendment to local law number 4 of 1997 for the Verbeck Frank Planned Development District, and to amend the name of the development district to the Emma Lane Planned Development District. Whereas an application for an amendment of a planned development district for the construction of a building addition and expanded parking at the Peregrine Senior Living Facility at 1 Emma Lane was filed with the town clerk on December 3rd, 2018. And whereas the planning board reviewed the proposed project at its January 22nd, 2019 meeting and forwarded an advisory opinion in favor of the proposal to the town board on January 28th, 2019, recommending approval of legislation amending the planned development zoning district. Whereas the town board wishes to invite public comment on the proposed project from residents and members of the public, now therefore be resolved that a public hearing to consider a local law amending the Verbeck Frank PDD is hereby scheduled for March 11, 2019 at 7:05 in the Wood Memorial Meeting Room, 1 Town Hall Plaza, Clifton Park, New York, and be further resolved that the town clerk shall publish appropriate notice of same. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement of adjustment and release of owner with the New York State Department of Transportation. Whereas the state of New York has taken or is in the process of taking a portion of the land owned by the town of Clifton Park through the process of eminent domain for the purposes of improving Sterling Heights Drive. And whereas the state has offered to pay the town of Clifton Park the sum of $500 for a portion of the town of Clifton Park's property along Route 146 and Sterling Heights Drive, as depicted on maps 7 as parcels 10 and 11. And whereas an agreement to accept said money, an agreement of adjustment and release of owner, has been signed on behalf of the town of Clifton Park by the supervisor, and whereas the town board, the town of Clifton Park is the governing body of the town of Clifton Park, and whereas the town board is meeting on this 4th day of February 2019, after proper notice to consider this matter, and whereas the town of Clifton Park wishes to ratify the agreement, adjustment, and release of owner, and to appoint Supervisor Barrett as the person to execute closing papers on behalf of the town of Clifton Park. Now therefore be resolved that the agreement of adjustment and release of owner is hereby accepted and ratified, and be further resolved that the supervisor is hereby designated as the person to execute any and all closing papers with regard to this transfer to the state of New York. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement of adjustment and release of owner with the state of New York Department of Transportation. Whereas the state of New York has taken or is in the process of taking a portion of the land owned by the town of Clifton Park through the process of eminent domain for the purpose of improving Route 146A. And whereas the state has offered to pay the town of Clifton Park the sum of $45,500 for a portion of the town of Clifton Park's property along New York State routes 146 and 146A, as depicted on maps 26, 27 as parcels 29, 30. And whereas an agreement to accept said money, an agreement of adjustment and release of owner, has been signed on behalf of the town of Clifton Park by the supervisor, and whereas the town board of the town of Clifton Park is the governing body of the town of Clifton Park, and whereas the town board is meeting on this 4th day of February 2019 after proper notice to consider this matter, and whereas the town of Clifton Park wishes to ratify the agreement of adjustment and release of owner and to appoint Supervisor Barrett as the person to execute closing papers on behalf of the town of Clifton Park, now therefore be resolved that the agreement of adjustment and release of owner is hereby accepted and ratified, and be further resolved that the supervisor is hereby designated as the person to execute any and all closing papers with regard to this transfer to the state of New York. A resolution awarding a contract for removal and replacement of the entrance gates at the transfer station and authorizing the controller to make a transfer from contingency. Whereas sealed bids were opened for the replacement of the entrance gates at the convenience transfer station located at 217 Bishop Ferry Road on January 14, 2019, and whereas Precision Gate and Fence LLC, Route 9, Clifton Park, submitted the lowest responsive bid for the work, and whereas Daniel Clement, Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds, recommends that the Precision Gate and Fence be awarded the bid for the work consistent with these bid specification and documents. Now therefore be resolved that the bid is hereby awarded to Precision Gate and Fence, Clifton Park, in accordance with the bid in an amount not to exceed $22,965, to be paid with $10,000 from transfer station equipment, and $12,965 transferred from the contingency. A resolution authorizing replacement of windows for a section of Town Hall by Pella Window and Door Showroom of Rensselaer. Whereas the supervisor wishes to replace windows in a portion of Town Hall, whereas the quotes were obtained for replacement windows in December 2018, and whereas Daniel Clemens, Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds, recommends that Pella Window and Door Showroom of Rensselaer be authorized to replace the windows for an amount not to exceed $9,157.74. Now therefore be it resolved that the replacement windows within the 1995 edition of Town Hall, excepting Meeting Room C, is awarded to Pella Window and Door Showroom of Rensselaer, 3rd Avenue Extension, Rensselaer, at a cost not to exceed $9,157.74 to be paid in that line of this. The resolution authorizing the hiring of 2019 summer help for the Town Park District. Whereas openings exist for seasonal landscaping work in the Town Park Districts, and whereas Daniel Clemens, Buildings and Grounds Superintendent, has recommended that the individuals listed on Schedule A be hired to fill the positions as noted. Now therefore be resolved that the individuals listed on Schedule A are hired for light maintenance work in the Park Districts for Buildings and Grounds for the summer of 2019, effective immediately, to be budgeted from the lines listed. A resolution authorizing the purchase of a utility dump trailer for the Clifton Hills Park District. Whereas quotes for a 6x12 dump trailer were received on January 3rd, 2019, and whereas Versatile Trailer Sales of Gansport, New York, submitted the lowest quote in the amount of $6,221, and whereas Daniel Clemens, Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds, recommends a 6x12 dump trailer be purchased from Versatile Sales. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board, as agents for the Clifton Park Mills Park District, authorizes the purchase of a 6x12 cam dump trailer from Versatile Trailer Sales of John Gansport, as per the documents attached, in an amount not to exceed $1,621 to be paid from Clifton Knolls Park District equipment. A resolution hiring Wild Goose Chase and E. New Lebanon, New York, to rid the Clifton Knolls ponds of Canadian geese. Whereas the Canada geese continue to be a problem in the Clifton Knolls ponds at the Barney Road Golf Course. And whereas the Town Board, as commissioners of both the Clifton Knolls, Mill Creek Park District, and the Barney Road Golf Course, has received a request from the Buildings and Grounds Department to authorize the hiring of Wild Goose Chase and E to chase the geese away before they lay their eggs. And whereas the company utilizes border collies to herd and deter the birds until they leave. And whereas the town has been pleased with the service and commitment of Wild Goose Chase and the results in keeping the areas clear of Canada geese, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board, acting as commissioners of the Clifton Knolls Mill Creek Park District and the Barney Road Golf Course, hereby authorizes the hiring of Wild Goose Chase, New Lebanon, New York, to reduce the Canada geese from taking root in the Clifton Knolls ponds and Barney Road Golf Course at $65 per visit, and a total cost not to exceed $10,000 for the season, to be paid with $7,000 from the Clifton Knolls Mill Creek Park District and $3,000 from the Barney Road Golf Course. A resolution awarding a contract for landscape work for the Sherwood Forest Park District, whereas quotes were received by the Town Board as commissioners of the Sherwood Forest Park District for seasonal landscape work, including Sherwood Forest Park District entrance and median project, and whereas the lowest conforming quote for the landscaping services was submitted by A to Z Property Management, Vernon Bush Boulevard, Ballston Lake. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board, as commissioners of the Sherwood Forest Park District, hereby awards a contract to A to Z Property Management for landscape services at the Sherwood Forest Park District at a cost not to exceed $2,980 for the 2019 and 2020 seasons, to be charged from the Sherwood Park District maintenance. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to accept a proposal for professional engineering services for the rehabilitation or replacement of the Blue Spruce sewer main. Whereas the Collection Systems Manager, Michael O'Brien, published a request for proposals to solicit bids from qualified engineering firms for engineering services for maintenance and repair work of the Blue Spruce sewer main to allow for necessary paving. And whereas MJ Engineering and Land Surveying has submitted a proposal for the engineering services in the amount of $18,100. And whereas Michael O'Brien recommends the retention of MJ Engineering for the work based on their experience, now therefore be resolved that the supervisor is authorized to approve the attached proposal for the design services from MJ Engineering and Land Surveying PC, and be it further resolved that the controller is authorized to compensate MJ Engineering and Land Surveying in an amount not to exceed $18,100 for engineering services prior to the construction with a transfer from, and those lines are listed. A resolution establishing the position of water and sewage plant operator town. Whereas an opening has been created to maintain efficient operations of the water and sewage treatment plants, and whereas Michael O'Brien, Collection Systems Manager, has recommended that a position be established to oversee the maintenance and repair of pumping and chlorinating equipment at the water plant and sewage pumping equipment, as well as the physical upkeep of the grounds and buildings at these sites. And whereas by resolution number 1 of 2019, the town board appointed Donald N. Coons, Evergreen Boulevard, Scotia, as a part-time water and sewage plant operator at an annual salary of $6,500. Now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby establishes the position of water and sewage plant operator town as a non-competitive position pursuant to the attached job description to be paid with the transfer, and the 2 line items are listed. A resolution authorizing personnel from the building department to attend the annual conferences necessary to complete New York State requirements for code enforcement officers in 2019. Whereas conferences are designed to give their members the needed hours to complete the New York State 24-hour requirement for in-service education for all code enforcement officers per year in order to maintain their certification. And whereas the procurement policy 10 provides that all requests to attend classes, seminars, or professional conferences involving overnight stays must be approved by the town board. And whereas the conferences listed on Schedule A provide the classes for the acquisition of needed credits by building department officials and involve overnight stays, and whereas attendance at these seminars will provide a benefit to the residents of the town and is necessary to maintain building officials' credentials, and whereas the town board wishes that the building officials attend these conferences, now therefore be resolved that the building department is authorized to send staff to conferences as noted on Schedule A for a total cost not to exceed $4,350 as budgeted from training and conferences. A resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Ram from Maine Motor Car, Johnstown, New York, for use by the Building and Development Department. Whereas Stephen Myers, Director of Building and Development, requests authorization to purchase a new vehicle for use by the Building and Development Department. And whereas the new vehicle will replace the 2009 Ford Ranger pickup truck that will be transferred to the Buildings and Grounds Department. And whereas Mr. Myers has recommended that a 2019 Dodge Ram available from Maine Motor Car, Johnstown, New York, be purchased under the New York State mini bid at a cost of $22,139.64. Now therefore be resolved that the Clifton Park Town Board hereby authorizes the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Ram from Maine Motor Car, West Main Street, Johnstown, as described in the attached documents at a cost not to exceed $22,139.64 under the state mini bid, to be paid with the transfer of, and it's all listed with a transfer of $3,000 from one, $1,500 from another line, $7,000 from another line, all going into another line. The total for the vehicle is $22,139.64. This is the last one. A resolution authorizing the state of New York to incorporate the construction of a landscape flagpole area for the town of Clifton Park and the contract for the reconstruction of New York Route 146 at New York Route 146A intersection and in Saratoga County. Whereas Section 10, Subdivision 27 of the New York Highway Law provides in part that the Commissioner of Transportation shall have power upon the request of the municipality to perform work for and at the expense of such municipality any work of construction or reconstruction, including the removal and relocation of facilities, provided the Commissioner of Transportation deems it practicable to perform such work in connection with the performance of any work or of construction, reconstruction, or improvement. And whereas the state of New York is presently preparing contract plans for the reconstruction of the New York Route 146 at New York State Route 146A intersection, which involves construction within the project limits which the town of Clifton Park contemplated using for the installation of a landscape flagpole area. And whereas said improvement can be undertaken in conjunction with the construction of the aforesaid landscape flagpole area at substantial ultimate savings to the town of Clifton Park, now therefore be resolved that the Clifton Park Town Board in regular meeting convened petitions the New York State Department of Transportation as follows. Petition 1, The Clifton Park Town Board has been provided with a betterment estimate for the municipal share to New York State DOT construction contract, understands that the town of Clifton Park will be responsible for the actual construction cost based on bid prices, the cost of field changes during construction, and a prorated share of the construction inspection costs. The Clifton Park Town Board will actively seek funding in the amount of $46,640.55 to fund the town of Clifton Park share. The Clifton Park Town Board understands that these funds, which represent the initial deposit for the requested work, must be deposited in escrow with the state controller at least 30 days in advance of the scheduled contract letting date in order for the project to proceed. The Clifton Park Town Board also understands that these funds will be appropriated via a future resolution. In consideration of these facts, the state of New York is hereby authorized to proceed with the necessary arrangements to incorporate the proposed landscape flagpole area in the contract for the reconstruction of the New York State Route 146 at 146A intersection, with the cost of said construction and necessary work in connection therewith to be borne by the town of Clifton Park. Petition 2, the town of Clifton Park will maintain said landscaped flagpole area subsequent to the construction thereof. Petition 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately. And be it further resolved that the clerk of the town of Clifton Park Town Board is hereby directed to transmit 5 certified copies of this resolution to the State Department of Transportation.
All right, Pat, very good. Any questions on the resolutions? Okay, Pat, if you can read the headings, and we'll consider each one individually.
Resolution number 23 of 2019, a resolution accepting an application for inclusion in the conservation easement program of 2 parcels of land located at 929 and 937 Grooms Road, Rexford.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Anything to add here, Walter?
No, this is basically just housekeeping and making sure that I have resolutions to go with all my conservation easements, that's all.
Very good. So we were talking about the conservation easement program earlier this evening. This particular term would be of 25 years. This property is at 931 Grooms Road. So it's right on that, well, there's a few bends on Grooms Road, but as you get a little further out west, a little bend on Grooms Road before you get to Riverview, and that's where the property is located. Beautiful piece of property. Okay. Discussion. Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, and it's a total of 87 acres, right, in the 2 parcels? Yeah. So very, very pleased to protect that property. Happy to partner with the Craywickies on that.
Resolution number 24 of 2019, a resolution authorizing alcoholic beverages to be served at a gathering to be held at the Clifton Park Senior Community Center on May 5th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wallowitz, second by Mr. Whalen. Discussion. Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Resolution number 25 of 2019, the resolution setting a public hearing to consider an amendment to local law number 4 of 2097 for the Brebeck Frank Plan Development District and to amend the name of the development district to the Emma Lane Plan Development District.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Romano, second by Mrs. Standard. Discussion. Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 26 of 2019. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement of adjustment and release of owner with the New York State Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Mrs. Standard. So we have some resolutions that relate to the improvements that DOT is undertaking at the intersection of 146, 146A and Bishop Ferry. So this is one of those resolutions on the agenda this evening. We're getting closer to construction on that project. Discussion. Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 27 of 2019, A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement of adjustment and release of owner with the New York State Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wallowitz, second by Mrs. Standard. Anything to add here, John?
No, I think everything's been covered.
Okay. Very good. Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard? Yes. Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Wallowitz? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Resolution number 28 of 2019, a resolution awarding a contract for removal and replacement of the entrance gates of the transfer station and authorizing the comptroller to make a transfer from contingency.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Romano, second by Ms. Wallowitz, and Mark DeCoco is here from Precision. It's always good to do business with folks that have their businesses located in Clifton Park and live in Clifton Park whenever we can. Dan, tell us about the gate that we're considering for the transfer station.
Excuse me, that's a fully automated electronic gate that you pull up. You'll be able to hit a button and punch in a key and the gates will open. Right now there's an old steel gate that you swing open, it's padlocked shut. This is moving into the 21st century here.
Yeah, for those that use the transfer station or don't, there's two gates, one on the exit, one on the entrance, and they're completely manual. Probably the same gates that have been there when they opened the transfer station. So they're closed, there's a padlock that goes on. In an effort to provide more security to the transfer station property, especially when the facility is closed to outside traffic or anybody that is anybody unauthorized should not be entering the facility, and for ease of ingress egress, we've decided to consider this gate. And since Mark is here, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the, if you would. I mean, you've been here for 2 hours. I might as well put you to work.
Well, it's been interesting. So it was nice being here to listen to everything, because I am a town resident and I do appreciate being here. Again, my name's Mark DeCoco. I'm the owner of Precision Gate and Fence. We submitted a bid to replace the gates, and yes, they are old gates that are there. What's nice about the automated system is it helps mitigate liability of somebody getting injured, opening those gates, closing those gates. We have to worry about ice and those sorts of things in the area in which we live. So this helps mitigate that. It also makes the area a safer facility. It's easier for people to get in and out. This particular unit actually has a very smart keypad. Keypad has a camera built in. It has a keypad so you can go and put your numbers, an assigned code in there. Or you can use a gate transmitter that is assigned to the proper people throughout the departments. What's nice about that is we can actually police the activity of people coming in and out. So it makes it a lot easier on the facility director there and certain town people.
Yeah, and on Mondays, we have people in and out of the facility that are authorized, and unfortunately, what we've experienced is unauthorized people have taken advantage of that situation, and that could create, liability for the town. There's no doubt about that. So this will eliminate the liability of people coming in and out of the facility that should not be there when it's closed on Mondays. The other thing that we liked about this process and the structure involved with this gate, it's got some neat technological abilities, and one is that we'd not only be able to track who's coming in and out, but also through the camera system and an app on a phone, or you can do it through a laptop or a computer as well, is you can let somebody in remotely. So explain that to us, Mark, how that works.
That's correct. There's two ways that this can be set up. It's a roll calling or a broadcast calling. So we can roll call up to 5 said numbers. And what will happen is the first phone will ring, if nobody answers it, we'll go to the next, and so on. Or we could do what's called a broadcast. The broadcast call will go up to 10 phone numbers, and it will call them all at the same time. Whoever picks up the phone first can talk to that person and grant access. So those are assigned totally by whomever's in charge of the system. This system is 100% SIM-based, just like a cell phone would be. So it just has a SIM card that goes in there, it has its own credentials, so we can basically tell it to do whatever we want it to do.
Yeah, so that would be, again, it would not cause somebody to, that does need to get in, we'd be able to let them in remotely without causing too much of a delay for them. And again, ensuring that the integrity of the facility is maintained, and that's very important.
That's correct.
Anything else that we should know? I appreciate that you coming in and meeting with us to go through all of the multiple abilities that this system has. Dan and I met with Mark recently just to make sure that this gate and system would meet our needs, to make sure it was what we were looking for, that it would accomplish the goals that we established for procuring an automatic gate of this type. And I'm not going to speak for Dan, but I think he was, as well as Jeff Vetter, pleased with what they saw.
Absolutely was, yep, very good. I just want to add one other quick point, was during normal operating hours, the gates will be locked open by, Jeff can go up and turn a key and lock these gates in an open position, so people going to the transfer station will be the normal thing, be able to pull right in and go to the booth as normal during regular hours, so they're not going to have to push buttons that they won't have to do anything.
Yeah,
Just
right.
to make that point.
So it can be either way. Anything else we should know, Mark?
The system, again, the way we designed it, I think it's going to work really well. When we had our meeting, I think it really fits all the needs of the current
Yeah, I think so.
situation. And the nice thing about these operators, as well as the keypad, is it's programmable in the future. We're not limited to anything. We can always add on to it.
Right. Fantastic. Any questions for Mark at this time? Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you sticking around all this time.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
I didn't want to skip over that last resolution with DOT too quickly. Well, let's vote on this first. Just want to make another point. Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Stanton?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Oliver?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. One item I wanted to point out, the island up here at the intersection of 146, 146A, where it has that small Town of Clifton Park sign on it that's been there for a number, well, I guess since the late 90s, so a number of years. The state will be purchasing that island from the town for $45,500. And we will use that money for amenities that we would like to see included in the final product, the final once the project is over. Some of the aesthetic amenities that we would like to see that the state is not including, we'll use that money to pay for that. The other great thing about that project is that where the former Mobil was, at that intersection. So you have our island on one side, and then directly across the street, there was formerly a Mobil station there that has been, that property has been vacant for many years at this point. That will also be used as part of this project. So eliminating that vacant, ugly piece of property is a side benefit to the DOT project 146, 146A. So I just wanted to make that point. Okay, Ben.
Resolution number 29 of 2019, a resolution authorizing the replacement of windows for a section of Town Hall by Pella Window and Door Showroom of Rensselaer.
So,
Second?
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Mrs. Standard. Dan?
Yes, this 1995 edition is basically the building department and the supervisor's office, that whole section there. It's about 14 windows between the two floors. There's the gas sealed and for their
Yeah.
gas window. The seals are broken. They're all foggy inside, and they've just fallen apart over the last 23 and a half years. So this is to replace every one of them.
Yeah, they started to get real bad last year. Yeah, that fogging and yeah, it's just so definitely needed to spend 95. Yeah, it's been a long time, 25 years. So time.
Indeed.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Marlowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 30 of 2019, a resolution authorizing the hiring of 2019 summer help for the town park districts.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Wallowitz. Dan?
Yeah, two of these guys are going to be going to the Clifton Knolls Mill Creek Park District. We're going to be working around on the ponds and clearing out stuff and making trails. And they're both new. They haven't been hired before. Bill Williams, back at Glasgow, he's worked for us there for quite a lot of years. He does just a lot of light maintenance around the Bernie entrance sign and the park and trimming back bushes and things like that.
Good. Questions for Dan, comments? Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano? Councilman Marlowitz? Yes. Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 31 of 2019, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a utility dump trailer for the Clifton Knolls Park District.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Dan?
Okay, this is going to be used in conjunction with the weed harvester boat that the Park District bought. We'll be able to, once that gets out on the water, we'll be able to back this dump trailer down the same place we put the boat in the water, and it will pull right up to it, load the trailer up with the weeds that it's pulling out of these ponds, and then pull it away and haul it to the designated dumping site. Making it a much more efficient and quicker process. Instead of dumping it on the ground, picking it back up, putting it in something else, it's eliminating the middle step.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, that'll pay a lot of dividends as time goes on, no doubt. Close bid, too. Wow.
Certainly was.
Any comments, questions? Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Marlowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 32 of 2019, a resolution hiring Wild Goose Chase New Lebanon, New York to rid the Clifton Knolls ponds of Canada.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Ms. Wallowitz, second by Mr. Whalen, and this is something that we've completed annually for a number of years. It works very well. We've been commended in the past for our humane treatment of our local fowl. And boy, if they're left to their own devices, they will foul a place up, let me tell you. It's rather messy. Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Marlowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 33 of 2019, a resolution awarding a contract for landscape work for the Sherwood Forest Park District.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Anything to add here, Dan?
No, this is just every year the Park District has this little additional thing to their landscaping agreements, and this is basically just a spring cleanup of all their entrance areas along the signs, picking up debris and weeding and things like that.
Very good. Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Marlowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 34 of 2019, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to accept a proposal for professional engineering services for the rehabilitation or replacement of the Blue Spruce sewer main.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen, and we've been wanting to pay Blue Spruce for at least a couple of years now, but got to do this sewer work first. So tell us where we're at here, Mike.
Yes, sir. As you alluded to, we've taken on the role of inspecting the sewers and other infrastructure underneath roads before we pave them, so we're not, digging up new roads to fix old problems. During that investigation, we discovered quite a bit of damage to the pipes from hydrogen sulfide that originates from two pump stations, one from Dutch Meadows and one from Woodstead Drive. And over the years, it's the same thing as in Pardo Rio, if you remember. It just that gas just eats that AC pipe. right away. And we brought that to the attention of Dan Bowen, the town supervisor, and we're moving forward to get that pipe fixed up so the road can be paved. And hopefully, the condition the pipe's in right now, we may be able to line it, which is not something we've done before here in the town. And it should be less expensive, and we don't have to cause as much disruption to the residents there. So MJ Engineering is going to come in and evaluate the entire area, figure out exactly what has to happen, and help us get out to bid for early spring to complete beginning of summer.
Yeah, and I think as we go forward, I'd like them to just come in and briefly explain that lining process, because it's an incredible process, and what technology allows them to do instead of digging the whole length, taking out all the old pipe, putting in new pipe. This lining process does basically the same thing.
That's right.
But with much less disruption and digging and so on and so forth.
Right. We actually, as you know, the sewer department has the ability to do small spot repairs with the same technology today. So we've been doing that stuff for a while, but we're talking like a 2-foot section we can fix.
Yeah.
Still saves a lot of money and time. It's like $600 to repair it. It would cost us $5,000 to $6,000.
And this is a pretty lengthy piece of pipe here, so it'll be a little bit of a disruption to the folks along Blue Spruce. We'll make it as painless as possible, but we want to get in and out quickly. The bids were, the prices were all over the place on this, which was rather surprising. But we did, Mike and I met with the low bidder, MJ Engineering. We were confident that despite the fact they were much lower than a lot of the bidders, that their bid is comprehensive and will cover all of the elements that Mike needs covered when not only planning for this process but executing it as well. So, if you're comfortable with it, then obviously we're gonna go. We'll go with the lower price.
The representatives are really sharp. The meeting was really good, and I do feel like they have the town's best interest in their proposal. We'll get what we need done.
So I think it was a $50,000 difference. Yeah. So I mean that's significant. Okay. Any questions for Mike? All right, Pat.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Marlin? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Resolution number 35 of 2019, a resolution establishing the position of water and sewage plant operator County. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Michael.
This, I believe, is just a formality. Obviously, the town took over operations, full operations of the Riverview Landing wastewater treatment plant in a cost-saving measure. We were hiring an operator. We need an operator out there, a licensed operator, to operate a wastewater treatment plant in New York State. And we've been, the past services were done through an engineering firm who had a gentleman who had a license who's been running the plant out there for, I don't even know how long. He's been out there forever.
Yeah, quite a few years.
And we...
well, he ran it before we were involved.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we made some moves this year to basically cut out the middleman. It was amenable to both parties. They wanted a big price increase. Really didn't want to do it. We didn't want to pay the extra money. We were able to get Mr. Coons to come and work for us. That's why, you see the resolution you passed a few weeks ago with the $6,800 salary. It's commensurate with what he was making working for the engineering firm, while we don't experience an interruption in service. But we did trigger a civil service position creation here at the town of Clifton Park. We've never had a wastewater operator on staff, and it triggers a civil service situation where the town has to designate the position. It's a non-competitive position. It's a water, wastewater. We're doing wastewater. But that's what we're doing tonight, is just, I think, creating a position, if you will, the title.
Right, and it's a very small system out in Rexford, and that's why the annual pay, $6,500. Obviously, you think of operating a plant, you're thinking of a major operation, and full-time job. This is not that. It's very small, serves a small number of homes on Rexford. Any money that we can save is money that is saved for the people in the district and the people that are served by the plant itself. So we want to do everything we can to save them money because it's a very expensive system for them to maintain. So, all right, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Walowit? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Resolution number 36 of 2019, a resolution authorizing personnel from the building department to attend the annual conferences necessary to complete New York State requirements for code enforcement officers in 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Walowit. Steve, anything you want to add?
Just our standard training we have to go through every year, trying to get everybody through it.
I didn't think there was any more you could learn.
Always something.
Really? Huh. Montour Falls, New York. Is that near Pottersville or?
It's just north of Binghamton.
Oh, it is? Yeah, well, isn't it near Watkins Glen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an It's a Wonderful Life reference. I don't know if you caught that, but well, Pat did, of course. Montour Falls. What's that?
I said more to waste it.
Because it's a wonderful life, Pat.
True.
Okay, go ahead.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Walowit? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
It's getting late. Resolution number 37 of 2019, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Ram from Maine Motor Car, Johnstown, New York, for use by the Building and Development Department.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Mrs. Standard. Yes. Mr. Myers?
Just, the place.
Do you need a new vehicle to get to Montour Falls? Is it?
Well, no, it won't be here in time for that, but I need a new vehicle, and Dan finds good use for my older ones,
Yeah.
so it works out well for both of us.
He's gonna get he gets another 10 years out of the pickups you give him.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. You better believe it. Okay, Pat?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilman Walowit? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes. Nothing goes to waste.
Resolution number 38 of 2019. Oops. A resolution authorizing the state of New York to incorporate the construction of a landscape flagpole area for the town of Clifton Park in the contract for the reconstruction of New York Route 146 at Route 146A intersection in Saratoga County.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen, and we've been working very closely with DOT on the project up here at 146, 146A. Once they decided on an option that they were going to pursue, we then began to talk about pedestrian access and how that would look, and I appreciate their changing the plan, moving in the direction that we requested originally. And another thing that they've been great with is the aesthetics. We really want this project to look nice when it's done. We want that whole area to look beautiful when this project is done. The new sidewalks, I think, will be a very good benefit for that area. Those sidewalks will go down to Sterling Heights, so that'll be an extra benefit for the folks that live a little further west on 146 from the intersection. But DOT is committed to planting flowers, trees, both within the roundabout and then external to the roundabout. Again, external to the roundabout, but within the project area, we will erect a large flagpole, which we're very excited about, with some benches, so it'll be a nice sitting area. And what's more aesthetically pleasing than Old Glory waving in the wind here in Clifton Park? So we're very excited about that part of it as well. And whenever you have a roundabout, as you approach from either side, there's always an area. What's up with the flies here tonight? There's always an area. It's usually a triangle shaped, and it lays between the legs of the roundabout. At least ones of this size, a larger size, and typically they're either gray or red. You'll see that painted brick. Well, we're going to have green, because we're going to Shen green, and so we're going to have green colors as you enter the roundabout on either side. So it's going to, I think, be very nice. It's not only going to significantly assist with rush time automobile traffic, but also I think you'll find it very aesthetically pleasing, and that is one of our big goals with this project. So there you have it. Okay, Pat.
Council Whalen?
Yes.
Council Standard? Yes. Council Romano?
Yes.
Council Malawa? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes. Okay, is that it, Pat?
That's it.
All right. Okay, any other business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to public privilege. If you'd like to speak on a town matter, please raise your hand. We'll ask that you come forward. State your name and address for the record, and please keep it to 5 minutes or less. Well, we have the other O'Donnells here. No relation to our town clerk.
But I wouldn't mind being replaced.
Okay, no takers this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Council Whalen?
Yes.
Council Standard? Yes. Council Romano?
Yes.
Council Malawa? Yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you.